Welcome to Season 4 of the Biz Show, sponsored by InvestQuire. Discover what's next with this insightful podcast. And now, your hosts, Barry and Lisa.
Lisa, how are you today?
Oh man, it's been a whirlwind of a day, but I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
Busy, man. It's been a busy couple weeks now. Actually, a month or so, huh? A couple months.
Yeah, I've got to see you a lot today via Zoom. We've been spending together.
We've had a lot of meetings, that's for sure. Just like
I have,
back to back to back to back to back.
yeah, I think I have energy waves flowing through my veins. All of this electronic usage is a lot. It's a lot.
Well, I don't know. I hope I got blood blowing through my veins now. Well, listen, everybody. Welcome to the Biz Show. How you doing?
What episode are we now? 5, 6?
We are 7 now. Episode 7 of season 4.
Oh my gosh, my favorite number 7. Okay, well, let's make it a good one.
No, 8. 8. We're 8s. What are you talking about, Lisa?
Well,
You're changing your number on me now.
lucky number 7, but when it comes to me and Barry, it's always number 8.
Infinity,
Yeah.
right? Well, so this podcast, we've talked in the past a little bit about this topic. The topic is, pricing, right? Getting pricing right, and really why most startups get their pricing wrong. And in the past, we've talked about how to get your pricing, how to look at your pricing. We'll talk about that a little bit today as well. But really, we'll focus on the things that you get wrong, or most companies get wrong, and then we'll kind of help you get them set right.
Yeah, because pricing isn't just about the math, it's actually about positioning. And
Yeah.
most founders treat it kind of like a spreadsheet problem. But we have to set up a thesis for that, right? You have to use pricing to determine your margins, and your margins will determine your sustainability in the marketplace. And then sustainability will determine the valuation.
Yeah, it does. It's kind of a waterfall effect, right? Or they all kind of just run into one another. So why is pricing so critical? And forget the dollar amounts and things like that, right? We're not talking about the revenue that you're bringing in. I mean, yes, that is part of it, but your pricing impacts gross margin, your cash flow, even your branding, right? So whether you're high end or you're low end, stuff like that. Your customer perception, right? If you price too high, if you price too low, your sales velocity, right? So how fast are your sales going because of your pricing, how you price stuff out. Of course, investor attractiveness. So if you're really and your pricing is really, really low, then the type of investors you're going to attract are the bottom feeders, right? If your pricing is too high, well, nobody's going to want to touch you because you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, maybe your phone's not ringing and you're like, why am I not doing any business? Well, you could be pricing yourself out of the market. So just be careful.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, exit valuation too, right? So we've had companies for sale in the past and their pricing was completely out of whack. And it affects how much you can sell your business for, right? Because as business brokers, when we do an evaluation on a company, we do look at the overall revenue that the company does bring in. That is part of what we determine what the value of your business is for sale is the overall revenue of the company. So if you're pricing things too low, then your revenue is going to be low, right? If you're pricing things right, well, then you're going to fit right in that sweet spot.
Yeah, and that might be something you need to tweak or adjust before you actually are able to sell your business or exit out. So you want to make sure that you key into that if you are preparing to sell and you want to exit or retire. And that could be an area that you look at is actually your whole overall pricing strategy.
Yeah, buyers, when I say buyers, investors and stuff like that, they don't buy on revenue, right? They're not really, they are interested in your revenue, but they're more interested in your margins and your predictability.
Yeah. And if you're underpricing something, I mean, it signals a lack of confidence or perhaps, I don't know, laziness. I don't know. Overpricing without value will signal, I'm never, no repeat customers for sure. And a lack of your own market understanding, maybe what your competitors are charging, or understanding really the consumer and the audience and what they're willing to pay. That's part of the research, in your business plan that we talked about in the last episode. So,
Yeah, and the last one, exactly.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why do
So
most startups get it wrong? I mean, I just mentioned why they get it wrong. They're not doing their market research before they're pricing their product. But mistake number one is cost plus pricing, and founders will
mhm.
calculate cost plus their desired profit to get to their price. But the problem with that would mean that the customer really doesn't care what the owner, wants to profit, or what their margin, comfortability is. The customer is going to do their own research and find out that they can get the same thing at your competitor next door, right? So the customers don't care about your cost structure. So
They
pricing is
don't.
on the
They don't.
perceived value and then do the math around that.
Exactly. There's a tool that most customers use nowadays called the internet, and they price shop on the internet wherever they go. And guess what? They're going to check you against Amazon. They're going to check you
Oh
against
yeah.
Walmart.com. And if you're a business that sells services, well, then there's other services out there they're going to check you against, right? So, um,
Exactly. I just bought some vitamins today at the doctor's and I was thinking, man, I usually buy these, through Amazon. I wonder if I'm overpaying. And, it was more about convenience, just being there in the moment. So, but I'm going to do my homework and I'm going to check that out later to see if
there
I'm
you
over,
go.
but so
So the next mistake that companies make is pricing by fear, right? Based off of fear. Let's keep the prices low so customers will come in the door. They're not going to come in the door no matter what, right? So we need that traction, right? We'll raise our prices later. Wrong. You that when you raise your prices as a company, you're sending a signal to your customers, right? That in one way they don't matter, and you're passing costs on to them and everything. But that a lot of times for businesses is a kiss of death, especially in
yeah,
the
they won't.
services business, right?
Right.
And I'll give you an example. Um, at GE, we charged $150 an hour. Now we're talking back in the 90s, right? So today, cost equivalent, that'd probably be about $400 an hour, which is expensive. However, it was GE Capital. We had that little meatball logo with the GE in the middle of it. And a lot of times we'd go into customers and say, look, we're GE. Here's what we're going to sell it to you for. This it. We'll get it done. We'll get it done. And we did. So people trusted that. However, when you raise your prices, and we didn't do this at GE, but one of our competitors did, and surprisingly enough, they raised their price, and they were like 200, they went to 250, and we're at 400, right? All their customers left them and came to us at $400, and it was strange math. I couldn't figure it out. It's like, okay, you went from $200 to 250, but then you quit them and came to us for $400. How does that math work?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
But
perfect example tie in to this.
Yeah, but it just goes to show you that the math doesn't really equate when you're trying to figure customers out.
So yeah, mistake number three. If you're going to copy your competitors, no good. We don't want you to copy your competitors. We want you to do your own research and figure out what differences that you offer compared to your competitor, and then price out your product or your service accordingly. So have different cost structures. Maybe you have deeper capital, and maybe you're trying to underprice to gain market share. But don't misprice yourselves and don't do exactly what your competitors are doing. Matching your competitors may be outsourcing your thinking.
It is, and the thing is how do you know your competitors have it right either? You don't
Yeah,
know, right? They're probably winging it just like you are. So,
yeah,
do your homework. We've talked about this in past episodes, and I think season 3, possibly season 2 as well. When you're doing pricing, go in, yeah, definitely, absolutely check your competitors.
Yeah. And
Figure out where
sometimes
your sweet spot is.
when somebody is a little bit higher priced in the marketplace, I always think, well, gosh, they must be offering something better. It kind of creates that
Huh?
curiosity in a consumer thinking as to why is it more expensive? It must be better quality. It must be last longer. It might be better for you, you know. So all of those things kind of trigger the thought process, and then it is your job to sell it at, a little bit of a higher price, perhaps, right?
Take a look at us, right? So, we don't hide anything. So at InvestSquire, we charge $250 an hour, right? And that's because I have 40 years experience. Lisa's got 20 plus years experience. This is experience talking and coming to you guys, right? So it's not necessarily, oh, we just picked this number out of the blue sky. Pluck, here's the number. Oh, here we are, right?
Yeah,
And
we're not
and
the cheap
and
highest, we give
Oh,
you
we, we are right in the middle of the road. Some companies charge $500-600 an hour, and some companies charge $100 an hour, right? But you get what you pay for. So, we've been through many, many deals and through our years, stuff like that. And so we have that experience that comes with it to help move along faster.
yeah, exactly. Yep.
So, yeah, so copying competitors not good.
Yeah.
So the next mistake that people make is ignoring unit or just ignoring economics, right? And what I mean by economics, well, there's formulas and you've heard us talk about, P&Ls and income statements and stuff like that, right? So CAC stands for customer acquisition cost. Okay, so that's a big number that people take a look at. How much does it cost you to get a customer? Do you know? I'm not saying you, Lisa. I'm just saying, to the people that are listening out there, how much does it cost you
Right.
to obtain a customer? And then once you obtain that customer, what is the value of that customer over their lifetime period that they're with you, right? And what is that lifetime even? And then, of course, gross margins, and then any contributing margins, like maybe you get cost of goods to go along with that. And then what's your break even point? And typically, if your customer acquisition cost is higher than your customer lifetime cost, you need to go become a muffler repair mechanic,
Right.
right? Because you're doing it wrong. You need to make sure that acquiring that customer, you try to get it down as much as you possibly can, and then you want to make sure over the lifetime that period that customer is with you, that they purchase more than what it costs you to expend to do that. Not only customers, but employees too, right? Employees cost money because you got to advertise, you got to interview, blah 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 blah, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then the next mistake that we wanted to share with you, mistake number 5, is confusing your revenue with actual success overall of your company. And a startup can really grow revenue rapidly because maybe you're the new kid on the block, the new business in town. And so you're getting a lot of traction there, and you're winning, customers and their attention. And so you're thinking, oh gosh, I'm doing so well. But maybe you're not going to be successful in that rapid, growth in the very beginning phases because you may be having the wrong margins. So you definitely want to. We always talk about like growing at a steady, pace and not growing too fast. And so definitely be aware of your margins so that your business doesn't fail after this huge, like, you know, revenue right out of the gates. And then all of a sudden you're going to collapse or your company's not going to be able to sustain that because maybe the excitement in the marketplace is going to wear off. And so you need to just make sure that you are keeping track of your margins and you're not making the mistake of like, oh my gosh, I have all this business and it's, you're relying on it to continue. And so make sure that your revenue has quality, like we keep talking about in this podcast, that you know that your customers are going to be recurring customers and that they actually come back. And it's not just curiosity that makes them do the purchase initially and then all of a sudden they fade away into the sunset and never come back again. We want them to come back. So definitely have
Yeah,
recurring quality because that is going to create success, not
the
just
key.
numbers. Yeah.
Right, right. The key, and you said it in there, Lisa, was the fact that you want repeat customers, right? And if your revenue's out, it's really doing really good, but you haven't done your margins, and you say you sell something for $100, but it cost you $99 to make it, at the end of
Yeah.
the day, you made a buck, right? So, boo-hoo,
Yeah.
right?
So
You
some
didn't,
people think, oh, it's so exciting, and then they have that fear factor of wanting to raise their prices or, get a little bit more competitive in their pricing. And then they don't. And then they're like really burnt out because they're like, I'm not making enough money doing this and I'm working all these hours, right? And so
right.
you want to be very aware of,
And,
the repeat business and tracking your numbers and all of those.
and
So,
customers complain. When you start raising your prices, customers complain. They will complain.
yeah.
So what does solid strategy pricing look like, right? So first of all, step number one, now you have to understand what is the value that you bring. So, what's the problem you're solving, right? We've talked this many times in the podcast here, right?
Mhm.
And then what is the financial impact on the customer, right? Not you, forget you, because the customer doesn't care about you. But are you saving the customer money, or are you saving them time? Are you solving something for them that they can't solve themselves? I guess if you're a plumber and they got water spewing out their sink and stuff like that, or the water pipes burst, okay, you need to call a plumber, right? That plumber is going to solve a problem that you can't solve because they're probably going to have to dig under the house and fix the broken pipe.
Yes. Yeah.
So, those are value-based pricing. This is where it starts, right here, figuring out what problem are you solving.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk about that a lot. You want to know
Hmm.
that going into it, and that's also a big part of your pricing structure. But and then of course we've talked about this so many times too, defining your target market. Who's your target customer? What is their demographic? What is their income earning potential in their demographic class? So that you could price to speak to that client, to that customer, to that demographic buyer. You definitely want to do that's part of your research of knowing who your target audience is, who your target customer is, who's going to walk through the door and buy your product. And that will help you structure the pricing level. If you can go up in pricing or have to go low based on your demographic buyer, right? You'll have enterprise buyers, you'll have some just regular consumers, you may have SMBs. And one pricing structure for all of those different classes of buyers is not going to work, guys. So definitely key into your target buyer, you know?
Yeah, definitely one size does not fit all.
Uh,
Definitely.
Not in this case.
And Lisa, I know you are the queen of the targeting customers and marketing, and I know that's a space that you really love to play in. And
Yeah.
we've had many conversations about who our customers are and how do we acquire them and things like that. So
Yeah.
definitely something for you guys, to think about. So,
Yes.
step number three is your anchor, right? And when I say that, so basically what I'm talking about is your pricing, which we talked about above. So if you can have tiered pricing, that's great. That's really where you want to be. As Lisa said, one price does not fit all. So if you can have a core price of really where you want the customer to be, that should be your medium price. But then give them a higher tier and a lower tier. So you give them three tiers: the low
Yeah.
tier, the right tier, and a high tier. And with that comes maybe packaging additional services in those tiers so that the value still makes sense to the customer. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to go wash your car, and here's the three car prices. I'm going to wash your car for $7 or $14 or $21, but you get the same job. Okay, well, give me the $7 job then, right? So no, you got to add some extra things in there for them to fill the need to jump to that next tier. And obviously, your goal is to target that middle, the core tier, the middle tier.
Yeah. That's a safe place to be, definitely just staying in the median area there so that you could kind of, gauge and track your numbers while you're hanging out there to see if you need to go down or need to go up. And that's really what this next step would be all about is like just, testing the market out with your pricing strategy. Pricing, it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
stagnant or
Step
static.
four, right?
Yeah, you could totally test the market out with it, right? If you've done your research, you know what the target demographic buyer is. Test it out, see if they're responding to that price level that you're introducing. Um, and then we always say track your numbers, track your conversion rates and your churn and your margin that you're receiving. If you know your numbers and you're able to make educated decisions, if you do need to adjust the pricing either up or down.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. Well,
Step five. We've already kind of talked about step five. I mean, it's pretty much
yeah,
aligning your pricing with your brand and knowing who your target audience is. And so we just wanted to make sure that, you're actually showing the value of your company. If you have really, classy and high level branding and your brand positioning is talking or speaking to that class of people, then you may be charging a more premium price and have a different, strategy and structure. But you can't be cheap and present like this premium luxury, branding, right? You don't want to be a mismatch there. So definitely be have alignment.
I told this story, I think, in a podcast in season one in regards to something like this, but it's something that I've always told all my employees and especially the salespeople and stuff like that, in the sense that um, as a customer, you walk into this, I'm talking about the three different levels of pricing and service, right? So walking in the Kmart, and I'm looking for the shoe department. And where's the shoe department? And I don't know where that shoe department is. I'm looking for a salesperson to help point me in the direction, and I can't even find them. So I just have to willy-nilly go around the store looking for it. Then if I go to Target, there's your middle price, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm looking for the shoe department. And let me find, oh, here's a salesperson. Hey, how you doing? I'm looking for the shoe department. They're like, oh, okay, then it's over there in the corner. I'm like, oh, okay, great, thank you. And away I go. Then if you go to Nordstrom's, you walk in, you're looking for the shoe department, and a guy walks up, oh, hey, how you doing, Barry? I'm Bill. How you doing? What are you looking for, Barry? I'm like, oh, I'm looking at shoe. Oh, shoe department, come on, come with me. Follow me. And they have that whole conversation with you as
Yeah.
you're walking to the shoe department. They're going to find out your name, your wife's name, what type of shoe you're looking for, whether it's a tennis shoe or a dress shoe. By the time they get to the shoe department, they go over, they get the shoe salesperson. Hey, this is Barry, and this is James, our sales guy. And by the way, he's looking for a tennis shoe, and he's a size 10 or whatever. So you've had that whole customer experience all the way in. Guess what? They charge more,
Yeah. That's
right?
right. Well, they have two, they've got to pay for the two employees, right? That
Well,
are working
you do, but the bottom line is the customer service and the value add that
the
bring is
memorable
brought to it,
experience.
right?
You're thinking, oh, they treated me so good, I want to go back, right? It just
Right.
makes that memory for the client
How
to
many
return.
people have, yeah, how many people have we met, Lisa, in our business? Actually, we even met some people today that we really liked in the conversation. We just met them for the first time,
Yes.
and they're like, you know what? These are really good, solid people,
Mhm. Yeah, which
right?
will hopefully we'll be doing business with them repeatedly. That is the goal, right? That's how we
That
want to
is, that
business
is,
with
that is the goal. Right,
not
right.
one and done.
So
So
let's talk about raising capital, right? Because pricing and investors kind of go hand in hand with this,
yeah, they want
right?
to see the stability of a clear pricing logic, right? They don't want to see that you're raising prices and lowering them. They want to see very stable pricing structures, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also your strong unit economics, those figures,
Yep.
and the market expansion over time. Did you add more services? Did you add more products? Are you getting more repeat clients? And those numbers to show that you've had scalability over time without your overhead, costs exploding. So
Yeah, definitely so. So weak prices, you're going to get a weak investor or no
yeah,
investor, right?
nope, yeah,
Um, Again, investors don't fund based off of revenue. I
yeah,
mean, yes, they look at that, right? But they're looking at margin and the potential of what this is.
yeah. And you can always fix your pricing later. I mean, you don't want to have to like totally readjust everything because then you're going to have that little lag time or going to confuse your customer base. But you can fix it if your numbers are off or your margins are way too low, right?
Well, yeah, you can fix your pricing, but there's going to be prices to pay,
Yeah, there'll be consequences,
right?
but you can get through
There,
them. But yeah, You need to make sure that you're not alienating all your customers or they lose trust in you or your product. You
Yeah,
don't want to damage your brand, perception. You want to maintain that your branding and the people that do know you and do business with you. You could have to probably will have to explain to your customer base, why your pricings are adjusted. And I've asked people that I work with, like why did you change your price? And
yeah.
then if they have a logical explanation, then usually you continue, to do business together.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's a little bit easier in the retail business, at least in the food retail business, grocery stores and stuff like that, because they're at the mercy of the suppliers that are bringing
Yeah.
stuff in, right? In the
Nope.
services, it's a little different because, you know, maybe, I know the state of California, for instance, had a minimum wage bump up to $20 an hour. A lot of
Yeah.
states haven't. So when that happened, a lot of restaurants and other companies, they had to raise their rates because they were paying $15 an hour. Now I got to pay that guy $5 an hour more per hour. I can't afford that without going out of business. So I've got to, those are easy things to explain. But if you're bouncing your pricing up and down, that's going to be hard to explain.
That's right. Yep. So our
Well,
pro tips, what do we got? We got about 5 pro tips that we went through pretty much, right?
yeah, typically we give out five and then
Yeah.
five mistakes to avoid.
So basically, you want your price based on value that you're delivering and
Yep.
not your cost that you're incurring. So keep that in alignment.
Value is key, right? So the next tip is start slightly higher. It's a lot easier to lower your prices than it is to raise them, right?
Exactly.
So start a little bit higher, but something that's within the comfort zone, but start at the high end of the comfort zone. And if you need to drop a point or two, okay, that's easy. And the customers are not going to complain about you lowering your prices.
That's right. And pro tip number 3 would be to know your CAC and your LTV.
Yeah,
Okay.
your customer acquisition cost and your lifetime value of that customer. Absolutely. And because those again, you want your acquisition cost to be lower than the lifetime the lifetime revenue that you're bringing in from that customer. Um, Tip number 4 is what? Create tier pricing, right? This is something I can't stress enough, really. You know, again, your sweet spot is in the middle, but make sure you give your customer some options.
Yeah, it's always good to have options and they feel like maybe the next time they'll come in and purchase more from you and they'll be a repeat customer with that strategy. So pro tip number 5 is revisit your pricing, track your numbers, do that at least every 6 to 12 months. As your value is increasing, you may want to raise your prices. So do a little price increase and maybe add a little something in there so that they feel like they are getting more for the increase in price. Be very
Right.
strategic about that.
You know, that just brought to my mind when you said that too. I think about what is it? The term called shrinkflation, where you're buying a box of cereal and it used to be a 12-ounce box of cereal, and now it's a 10-ounce box of cereal. Oh,
Yeah,
and the packaging says all new, and they raised it 50 cents,
yeah.
and they gave you less.
You don't even realize it, right?
Right.
Realize it because you're just grabbing your brand, throwing it in the cart. So you can get away with
Yes.
it, right? Yeah.
Well, I always look at the price per unit.
Yeah. Oh wow. You're doing math all day long then,
I
huh?
do. I do. My wife laughs at me, but hey.
Oh my gosh. So
So
5 things.
things to avoid. Yeah. What are we
Yeah.
avoiding, Lisa?
Oh gosh, competing on your price without a cost advantage is a big no-no.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Ignoring the margins, right? If you're going to chase growth, right, the only way you're going to grow is you got to grow your margins. How do you
Yeah.
grow your margins? Well, that's your profit, and that's what you're making between how much it cost you and how much you sold it for. That's where you want to grow it. And if, the first thing I would always suggest to a client is to go back to your supplier and see if you can negotiate a lower price. That way you can keep your number at the same place, right? And but yet you can get a little bit more margin. You could do
Yeah,
that after a while. You've been working with them a while. They get to know you. You get to know them. You can kind of start beating them up on pricing.
exactly. Because then you could, potentially leverage that relationship and say, gosh, I was approached by another vendor and they want me to buy from them, but I don't want to because we have this great relationship. So maybe you can cut me a slack here and give me some extra product for the same price or a lot or a little bit less.
That is a
Um,
strategy, definitely.
Five things to, okay, so the third thing to avoid would be underpricing just to get those customers and to gain traction in the marketplace. And I feel like that is just so um, not good. I mean, it's really like devaluing yourself and your product and your company branding. I had a colleague in the industry of real estate that actually would charge, 2 points less in his commission structure with sellers in order to get a bunch of listings. And he really created a bad name for himself because he was actually providing 1%, I mean, value to the client, and he didn't do as good of a job for the client and would sell these properties for under the market value. So he didn't even like keep the values in the neighborhood at the level that they should be. Not only did he like undercut his own commission, but he also undercut the sellers, profits on their house. So it was just a really, poor strategy, even though maybe he did it for the ego of seeing his signs all over the town, but it caught up with him. So that's the point. It catches up with you. You start, getting this reputation that is not going to be helpful to your business.
Right. Number four would be you get too many tiers, right? So we talked about tier pricing. You only need three. You don't need five. You don't need 10. Three is plenty, right? The low, medium, high.
Those analytical clients might walk out because they'll be all confused.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Just kidding. Oh gosh. Okay, so then the fifth one is treating pricing as a one-time decision. That is not what you want to do because you want them to come back again and again.
Yeah, you don't want to price it and forget it, right? So you got to keep on these. You should be looking, as I've said this many times, every day you need to be looking at your numbers, right? You need to know what your number is. And this includes looking at your margin numbers, right? Is your margin shrinking or is it growing? And then if it's growing, what products is it growing on? Because you want to obviously push those products a little bit more maybe. And maybe you need to adjust the products that aren't helping your margin along at all or dragging it down.
Or not sell them anymore.
Well, true. So, wrapping things up, basically, keep this in mind. Pricing is a strategy, right? And it's in a numeric form. So you're looking at your spreadsheets, you're looking at your competitors, you're looking at your costs. There's a lot of things that come into this of what you're pricing it for. So just keep in mind that, there's a lot of things to point to one another in order for it's like a wheel, right? You got the spoke and the hub, and in the center, everything ties into the middle.
That's right. And if you guys get your pricing right, then growth happens and it gets easier to keep your business open and thriving. But if you get your pricing wrong, then you're going to have hurdle after hurdle and everything will get harder for you to keep those doors open.
And we're not in horse races. We're not doing hurdles in horse racing, right?
No.
Yeah.
Well, that's a wrap. Right,
That's a wrap, Lisa. All right, very good. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Please help us grow our Facebook, right? We're new on Facebook, and we're trying to grow our channel up so that we can help everybody and educate everybody here as much as we are also in the audio world back at Spotify and everything else. But you can find all of our podcasts there and here as well.
Yeah, we love you guys. So please continue to listen and hit subscribe. Check us out on YouTube and all the other platforms.
Yeah, and don't forget, you can find us at the Invest Choir and on Facebook at The Biz Show.
Thank you all for listening to The Biz Show podcast. Subscribe to stay updated and follow Barry and Lisa on Facebook at The Biz Show. Share your comments or suggest business topics that you'd like to hear. Thank you all for listening. Bye.